On his debut, Jarno Uppbeat wins at Spa.
It's Martinez in Montreal. David.
Yeah, the intro music is just about... Oop. Alright, welcome everyone to round 1 of Belgium in the Tier 3 PC WOR Championship. I really scuffed that up. I completely messed that up. Completely. I'm joined here by Buffers.
Yes, hello.
My name is Reigns. Welcome.
Should be an interesting one. I'm interested because this is the first time that I've ever been on a sim racing or anything remotely close type broadcast. So I think it's going to be a pretty good time, my man. I mean, I'm very excited. I'm grateful for your company.
Yes.
And hopefully we can make something of this broadcast. Obviously, doing it live, no run it backs.
No, definitely. And I'm just gonna get... Right, that's... There we go. Okay. So, yeah. We have FES Istvan coming out as the first person on track. Starting out early. That's nice. It's nice to see. So, we know, for the people that are new here, that ET8 Danny Ko is the defending champion, if I read that correctly. So that is basically the top of the knowledge that I have about this entire tier. How about you?
Yeah, to be honest, my knowledge isn't all that broad. I haven't really been induced in or inducted into this kind of league racing scene quite just yet. So my knowledge on individual races is somewhat limited. But of course, we'll try and learn more as the season develops. And of course, with new people being inducted into this kind of tier 3 tier, I suppose you'd say, that this is going to provide an opportunity for many people to be kind of pitted up against those reigning champions and pitted up against those who consider themselves good. Obviously, with it being tier 3, there is potential for movement both upwards and downwards into both tier 2 and 4. So I think that there's a lot that can be said for some of these guys making their mark earlier on in the season. I think there are a couple of people on reserve driving tonight as well. I noticed in the chat earlier a couple of people not actually, how do I say, not actually present for tonight. Issues or whatever, of course. It's first week, which is not always that big of a deal. So sometimes in tier 3 as well, you'll get a bit of commitment issues, but that's why generally as you go further up the tiers, you get a bit more of that. So on the front then, into the match we go, into the game.
Yes.
We get to see who's out on what. Now, I'm going to have to get used to the spectator menu, but for the time being, everyone on outlaps. We've got some people electing to start qualifying here on the mediums.
Yes.
Often, the rationale for that, I guess, is more than anything to start on the alternate strategy, but earlier on in short qualifying, it can just be to make sure that all your settings are okay.
Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure these people have all done extensive time trials to see if their setups are good enough in the long run probably also done some GP mode to get an understanding of where the setup is, especially for the 50% races. Would not be surprised, in my opinion. And the first one out was Esteban Puki, who was followed closely by one of the Haas drivers, which I found to be a little unnerving because the amount of dirty air you can get if you start out that closely is not ideal, regardless of which one you have. And already, a 141.9. I'm gonna tell you this: the difference between Tier 3 and Tier 6 is exactly that. The first lap out was 141.9. In Tier 6, the fastest time was a 141.9.
Yeah, that's a pretty. I think that's an indictment of the learning curve that there is to F1. Whilst many people don't really consider F1 2021 to be a very accurate simulator of how these cars tend to drive, or even how these tracks tend to drive, I think there is still a steep learning curve to the game nonetheless, whether that be depending on what assists you're using, or even those making the adjustment to not using racing line or traction control for the first time. You mentioned previously that Haas that was out behind Esteban Puki. That was Toby. I think he might have just invalidated that lap currently there on the exit of the first chicane, unfortunately for him. But we'll see if he continues on. I think he is slowing down quite considerably.
Yeah, he has invalidated that lap. That is unfortunate, considering he started out right behind Esteban, and like right behind as in like 100 meters. Like that's all very close to start a hot lap, you would say.
Yeah, it is indeed, but I think during the outlap he backed off a little bit, which made it somewhat conceivable for a decent result. As we can see, times are starting to flood in now, at least valid times are starting to take over the leaderboard as Nathan Hartley leaps himself up to P7 with a 142.6. That, of course, on the soft tyres, but with short qualifying here, tyre conservation isn't necessarily everybody's primary objective. Of course, you are going to get 3 sets of soft tyres, and with 18 minutes for a quali session, the odds are you're likely is not going to get to use all of those 3 sets as well. So no reason not to kind of give it death earlier on.
Exactly. I'm hoping, and I might jinx someone with this, but I'm hoping that no one, especially in this tier, struggles up Eau Rouge and Radion.
That's going to be carnage.
Because the speeds that these guys will pull going up those 2 corners is going to be just next to nothing, and if one person spirals off track and doesn't get off the racing line, we are gonna see a minimum of 2 or 3 DNFs. I think it's very much safe to say that it happens in any tier, but like especially when they're so much faster when getting from point A to point B in this situation, it might actually just cause more problems.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. It's always the case, really, in any kind of racing series when it comes to Eau Rouge and Radion leading onto the Kemmel Straight. It often can be a bit of a liability with accidents occurring rather frequently, and when they do, they're often of a pretty large scale. At the moment, we're just getting a few people completing their first runs as well. You'll start to see a cyclical nature to short qualifying, where people go out early on, set a lap, come back into the pits, generally all at the same time. I think Danny here has invalidated his lap, so will not be setting one and going straight into the pits to crack on with his next run on the soft tyre. For now, I think there are only a few remaining drivers out on track. Currently, Tax in the Alpine currently lies in 6th position. I'm not sure whether this is going to be an in-lap for him, but he has invalidated it, so likely as not won't matter either which way. I'd recommend for him to come into the pits at this moment in time. And the same is true for the other driver out on track at the moment, which is Rafa Martins, who's currently also invalidated as he approaches the pit lane.
Yes. And we're seeing Esteban going right out with just 9 minutes left on the timer. Also, Toby seems to be struggling, because Toby especially is struggling right at that chicane at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Because that's the second time that he has invalidated down that straight, I'm pretty sure. Into that right left. Because it can be tricky, apparently, or trickier than you would hope.
Yeah, I think it is often a bit tricky, especially when you come out of Lacombe's. It is the kind of area on that runoff of the chicane where it does get a little bit complicated and often can be a little bit disconcerting. The car just wants to kind of drift wide. There's struggling for grip as you're trying to put the power down to get in towards Bruxelles. So it's often a difficult corner for a lot of people to try and negotiate on track limits. I mean, I myself have struggled with it previously, and we've seen many of the best drivers fall victim to it. But I don't think it's going to be plaguing too many more drivers, because eventually you get to a point where you might have invalidated so many attempts that you just need to set a good banker lap to give yourself some stead in qualifying. And that's exactly what Istvan Pukki is about to start now. Big, wide exit on the exit of the bus stop chicane. As he comes down to La Source, he starts his lap, his second run on the soft tyres. Currently on pole with a 1:41.9, but hoping to improve that. As there's cars in his way as he comes out of the pit lane. It's going to be straight up towards Eau Rouge and Radion. Onto the Kemmel straight with that DRS pinged wide open as soon as he gets the activation point for it. Trying to keep the line as narrow as possible in towards Lacombe's as well by keeping it tight through the top of the Kemmel straight. Now braking down for about 200 miles an hour into about 4th or 5th gear, depending on how brave you're feeling. And now out of the exit of Lacombe's. He's currently doing quite a good lap. Doesn't invalidate either as he moves into the second sector.
Oof. And we have him going down. This part is the toughest part because you can easily go a little too wide, and the track limits there are not easy. And down what's this called again? This is Pouan, right?
That's Pouan, yeah.
Yeah. That is a name that is gonna get memed about, I'm pretty sure.
It always does.
Had a lot of memes about that one.
Oh yeah, many over his time. But it's not going to stop Istvan here. He's currently on a bit of a run. I'm not sure. Well, the second sector's purple at the very least. Is now starting to barrel towards Blanchimont, 190 plus miles an hour at this point. As he swings it left, trying to maintain that speed as he comes into the bus stop chicane. A crucial area, also limited on traction as well, as you come on to the front straight. He gets it all sorted into third gear with a nice little short shift and over the line to improve by over 0.2 of a second. Puts himself affirmatively on pole even further now with a 1:41.759. But there are other drivers on a lap not too far behind him. Many about to start or complete those laps right now. One of which, of course, being Candy King. Currently in P4 in the Alfa Romeo, taking things very, very seriously as he comes down Stavelot. It's not going to stop him as he comes into Blanchimont in just a moment. He's on a decent lap here. It's yet to be invalidated. We'll see if he can trouble the top of the timing screens. Actually, that's Harlem Marquise who's gone up there as well.
Yeah, right as you said that he's made a considerable margin, Harlem just decided, no, I'm here too, and just put a considerably good time. Also, Candy King also just set a purple sector too, and it shows a 1:41.9. So the times really are coming down, and I would be safe to say we're gonna see at least a 140, like a high 140. Like, I would not be surprised if at the very end we are gonna see at least one person get extremely close to that time.
I think it could be likely, especially in the final runs. Often you'll see people drastically improving their times when it comes to the last time out on track, because the pressure's on. You've got to set up those laps and make sure it counts. Bit of a lock-up into the final chicane for Tax there as he comes to complete his second lap. That'll put him into P3 ahead of Candy King with a 1:41.9. A number of drivers starting to enter that territory, but of course the bar has already been raised, so needing to start getting some laps out now. Most importantly, as we look at it, currently on your timing screens, 4 notable drivers yet to set laps. Ayub Khan still yet to go out and set a decent lap time or even a valid lap time. The same true for Soying Shan Lim, Will Gibson and Danny Ko at the moment. So this should be coming out towards the end of this. It's going to be a one-lap wonder for those 4 drivers. I think there's only about 3.5 or 4 minutes left in the session currently.
And meantime, we have Edu going really slowly down Blanchimont for some reason.
Hoping this is Oh, okay. Interesting. I don't know if he's got some kind of problem with his wheel or he's just letting Candy King by, I think that was. I think Candy King is pitting anyway. I think he's just trying to be a good Samaritan to not stifle anybody into the bus stop chicane. Is he
It's the
starting
worst
a
thing
lap?
you could do. No,
No, he's pitting.
Okay, I think he didn't. He was unsure if the people behind him were on fast laps or not. So I think it was a safe bet to just decide not to get in the way just in case. Meantime, his teammate, Jenner, how would you even pronounce that?
I think
that's
it's
the name.
something like Yorane Dovzan. Yorane Dovzan. I think that's
Yeah,
something like
I
that.
think so. Who is just finishing their outlap and is about to start their two flying laps.
Well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? With a current time of a 1:58.3, that's not really going to be on par with the rest of the field at the moment. Must have been a mistake on his first lap out, and as of yet, unable to improve it. But we'll stay on with him as this is going to be one of the first flying laps of this final run. We'll see if the tyres can hold on for a second if he's not happy with this time, but he has jumped the gun a little bit. I don't think he'll have enough time to get out on a second set of fresh soft tyres if he has any available to him. But now into Le Combs. He is currently down on a decent time by about 1/10 of a second. That's a decent run through there as well. Yet to invalidate, but now let's see if he can keep it tidy on the exit. And unfortunately, he's ran it a bit too wide. So I'd expect to see him just keep his nose clean here. Keep the tyres within the window as best he can. And probably try and send it again. Yeah, exactly.
Because anyone going out right now feasibly only has one attempt at this. So the entirety of the bottom four truly only have one. And Sungchan Lim has cut it a bit close, it seems, because with 1:44 left on the timer and having to let by anyone on a fast lap, that is not a spot you want to be on to get to start your flying lap, especially when it's your only lap you have.
I think if he gets his skates on a little bit, he might be able to get round in time. He's currently got to worry about traffic though, and whilst there are some Red Bulls getting out of his way, he's going to need to be a little bit concerned about the other one that's right in front of him, which is Will Gibson, who's in a very similar position as well. They both need to kind of scamper around this lap as best they can.
Oh
Make
boy.
sure they've got time to play with. I think they should just be about okay. I think there is enough time left in the session as they are really hauling it around these sectors, but at least at the very least trying to take not as much out of the tyres as they would if they were going for it. But having said that, now it's going to be Danny Coe, currently P19 as he's yet to set a lap, starting his first and only flying lap of qualifying. He goes into La Source, holding the car in fourth gear rather weirdly, but you know, each to their own. Wants that traction on exit as he flies up Eau Rouge, Radion, and then onto the Kemmel Straight as he's flown up there now. It's a decent start to the lap. It looks clean so far. Decent line through Radion. DRS opened immediately as now the Mercedes starting to try and to climb up towards 205 miles an hour. But by the time he gets to Le Combs, he's cut just short of that. Swings it in right, swings it in left, slightly kicking the rear out as he goes on through. Doesn't invalidate on the exit either.
That was very close.
So a decent run for the time being. Now into one of the most difficult braking zones on the entire track. Downhill, turning in as you're still trail braking. Very easy to lock up or go too deep on the corner. But he gets it done perfectly, taking the F1 Esports line as well out on the AstroTurf as he throws it down Puon. Decent time coming in here from Danny Coe. Everything looking clean for now.
Meanwhile, Ayub Khan did set a lap time of 1:42.3. The only lap that was valid. But also,
not really enough to trouble the top lot though, is it, unfortunately?
No, and Nathan Hartley, by the way, had some trouble on Radion Eau Rouge.
Oh dear.
Yes. Which is unfortunate. Dozvan goes second fastest. Out of nowhere. Oh, wow.
Oh, good time to say the least, but a little bit of a lockup and a little bit of an overshoot from Danny into the bus stop chicane. It won't deter him from taking P2, but that little mistake in the final moments of that lap may have just been enough to secure Istvan Pukki P1 for the time being. I'm wondering who else is currently on a flying lap. Pukki currently curring gravel tracking, same as Candy King. Rafa Martins still trying to set one, but that's invalid, unfortunately. So we're looking further down the order now to people like Daniel Kjelsen, who's still trying to set a good lap here. He's on his final run, and he's got a bit of traffic coming his way. It's actually going to be his fellow Red Bull in Will Gibson, who's just bottled it, I'm afraid, as they go into the bus stop chicane. He's not going to be setting a competitive lap. It looks like Will Gibson will be starting from P19. Daniel Kjelsen not able to improve on time at all either. And that pretty much concludes the session, Reigns. Everybody completed their laps or back in the pits now. So this is how things are going to stay. It's going to be Istvan Pukki in P1 with Danny Coe in P2, and then the second Ferrari in Tadej Kevin in P3. Of course, P4 was that great lap from Jerne Dovsan, and then followed up by Harlan Marquis, who wasn't able to improve on his second run time.
That's very sad. The bottom two were not able to get a lap in. That was either valid or fast enough to even give a challenge. But props to some of the other people on the grid who did, for example, Dovzan, more than made up for it. Just truly made up for that. And I could not have suspected any of that to have happened. Like, all of a sudden we see the McLaren, which was nowhere to be seen, suddenly make it to P3.
Yeah, it was a strong lap. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, just pipped to the post a little bit by both Danny and Tadej Kevin in the Ferrari and Mercedes, respectively. There's a full breakdown on your screens of the current timesheets. Of course, very tight top five, covered by less than a tenth of the second. I didn't even realize when looking at it on the timing column to the left, but that is one hell of a gap between those top five drivers, which should make for a competitive race when it comes to turn one at La Source, which often, as we well know, can be carnage. So
yes,
I think the objective for those guys at the front is to keep their nose clean, and more than anything, try and avoid getting anybody up your inside that can cause any catastrophic collisions.
I mean, what are the chances we're going to see a repeat of what was that year? Where Hamilton just completely got wiped out, or wiped someone else out?
I think that was 2007 or 8, if I'm not mistaken. And then we had a similar thing happen in 2018, where Fernando Alonso in the McLaren, if you remember, went straight over the top of Charles Leclerc's halo.
Exactly.
You have all these kind of famous instances at the source. You've had it over the years. Of course, we've had horrible accidents at the top of Radion as well. So almost unspeakable accidents. But let's not focus on those too much. Let's pray, fingers crossed. Fingers
crossed, yeah, exactly. Let's not have that go wrong.
No. We don't want a safety car on lap one. That is what nobody wants.
We do not want that. No, that's not something. And here we have
we're already go. I didn't even see the lights go. It's formation lap. Never mind. I got way too trigger happy there.
No.
I was like, oh my god, we're starting already.
No.
Okay.
Wait, we miss everything. Wait, why did they fit single file? Why the single file? Race has started, right?
Come on, that's what we're really looking for. But at least I'm getting an indication on my side of things here about predicted pit stop strategy. On Spa, even in the F1...
Are you okay?
I'm just choking on air, I think. I'm not even sure. But I was going to say, at the time, I think the strategy on this is going to be pretty split down the middle. Everybody in the top 10 in qualifying was on the soft tyres. Now everybody who's outside the top 10 has elected to start on the mediums. If you bring that up, you'll be able to see it. I'm not sure what the hotkey bind for it is nonetheless, but...
I have no idea either.
Despite that, you should be able to see, at the very least, it is going to be mediums for Ayub Khan and below. The alternate strategy on Spa has proven before to be quite powerful, because as that fuel load comes down on a track with pretty low tyre wear, you can really make use of those soft tyres. And if you can stretch those mediums and keep those softs as fresh as possible for as long as possible, you'll be finding yourself in a very, very strong position.
And bring in safety cars, which are bound to happen, at least VSCs.
Almost inevitable. Almost inevitable.
And then you have a race where really it's a battle of if the soft to medium strategy is the ideal one or not. Because mediums are slower, but they will last much longer. Now, a safety car very early on really puts the entire medium running pack on the back foot. However you look at it, you want no safety car in the first 10 laps, I would say, before you even consider for a pit stop, starting on the mediums. So,
yeah, I think the softs, realistically speaking, are going to be lasting, probably with the quali lap factored in, about nine laps at a push. Whereas if you go onto a fresh set from the mediums, you might be able to extend them just that little bit further. Expect to see medium runners maybe pitting around lap 13 if they're feeling extra greedy to get those softs on as soon as possible. You can extend them even longer, though, if you so please. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing so. But we've not got much longer to wait, Reigns. It's 4 lights, 5 lights, holding for a little bit longer, and they're off. All straight from the line. Everybody getting a reasonably good start, filing into position, trying to get through the source comfortably and confidently. There's already been progress made by the McLaren of Jerne Dovson. He's managed to make his way past Tadej Kevin. It's nip and tuck at the front too, with Esteban Pukki taking a little bit of a tight line in front of Danny Coe, who is riding, pushing him up Eau Rouge and Radion. Now down the Kemmel Straight, they're going to go side by side, everybody fanning out. But unfortunately, the big losers from all of this has been Nathan Hartley. He's gone tumbling down the order. He and Soin Chan Lim are both 12 and 15 seconds behind, respectively. So this has not been a good start for them. And as a result, the virtual safety car has been deployed. So time to take a little bit of the excitement out of the race for the time being, but it was bound to happen. It's Spa, it's La Source, and it's Eau Rouge and Radion.
I mean, we kind of have to call that, because that is something that is going to happen. And also, on my screen, we're seeing the option of a soft medium strategy showing up as a suggested. I have no idea where that's coming from. I don't know where that's coming from, but I refuse to believe that that is even close to an option.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be unless we see some safety cars out at the in the later portions of this race. I think one thing that is going to be important to keep your eye on, though, is that P10, P11 differential at the moment. So you're going to be seeing Ayub Khan and Daniel Kjeldsen basically being the litmus test at the moment between the pace of the mediums and the softs. And if those medium runners are able to stay in DRS contention for the soft runners, then that will put them in a very, very strong position when it comes to the later portions of the race, where they may be able to make use of their own soft tyre advantage when it comes to around lap 12 or lap 13. So, off the line we go. It's a slow first lap because of the virtual safety car, but now it's time for moves to be made. Of course, DRS still yet to be enabled, but that's not going to stop people from starting to make some moves. Harlan Marquis already up to 4th place, as well as he's now taken Tadej Kevin, who's had a woeful start of things. Has lost 2 places off the start, both to the Aston Martin and the McLaren. Next up in line, who's looking quite predatory behind him, is Rafa Martins, who's also getting a bit close behind him. I think there's going to be a bit of overtake employed here as he ducks out the slipstream and now tries to tuck back in alongside.
That is very daring. That's you have to have extreme faith in your braking ability to be in a train of 4 cars and just not move aside. And just have faith that the person in front of you is not going to outbrake themselves. The amount of faith you need for that is... I couldn't have that. I don't know about you. But
often it just requires a little bit of a lift before you go into the corner. But not supposedly the worst thing in the world. As you'll notice, by the way, towards the back of the grid, Nathan Hartley praying for a safety car at this point in the other Mercedes, as he's had to take a pit stop in order to change a front wing. So he's onto the softs already. Not really been the best of starts that he'd have hoped for, and now Soin Chan Lim is also behind him back onto the mediums as well. I guess they both have had to pit for similar circumstances. But at the moment, back at the front, we're seeing gaps starting to open up a little bit. Most importantly here, I think, from Tadej Kevin, who's not really being able to hold pace with the leaders at the front. And as soon as he gets out of that 1 second window, doesn't have access to that DRS, he might find himself in a little bit of trouble here. For the time being, still just within touch. But that gap is starting to expand.
Definitely. I mean, to be honest, Daniko, being the defending champion, is essentially just there. And Istvan Pukki, I don't know if Istvan actually managed to compete last season, and if this is something kind of a rivalry that they have, but oh wow. Did just an overtake happen, or is that just on my screen?
No, it is an overtake at the front of the
Aha,
field.
the DRS
being enabled, and Daniko is not going to waste any time sitting behind Istvan Pukki. He's had 2 laps, or now 3, of sitting behind that Ferrari, staring at that rear wing, and wants nothing more to do with it. He's now going to try and see what pace he can set at the front. Of course, going through Sector 2 with this dirty air is often a bit more of a detriment than when you're in front, of course, when you've got that clear air. And you can see it's coming into play here through Puon, as now already 5 tenths has been put between Daniko and Pukki at the front. That gap's only going to continue unless Pukki can get in a decent slipstream as it comes down the back straight, moving into Blanchemont. Often the slipstream there can be extremely potent. Just needs to stay inside of DRS as well, and he might have a good shout when it comes towards the Kemmel Straight. So expect to see that gap diminish. Across the field, though, keeping an eye on the medium runners. Ayub Khan is still staying in touch with the soft runners at the moment. The gap really starts to fall off when you get back to P14, with Will Gibson currently being a little bit far away from his fellow medium runners. So that's pretty much the deal there. Of course, fan favourite in the chat, I've seen Carlos down in P15 currently and struggling as well. Not able to get past Will Gibson at the moment. An opportunity might present itself shortly on the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Dovzan is catching up to Istvan, who seems to just have lost all the pace he showed in qualifying for some reason. Or the other two have decided to really push it. I don't know which one is more accurate in this situation, but Dovzan is really just closing in fast. And Holland Marquise is also there, just waiting to just, like, these 4 guys are just moving away on their own. They're just out. They've just got. And something is happening to my timing screens, and I don't know what it is, but every time...
Just a bit of a bug. I've known it to do this on occasion. It does tweak out a little bit and have a little bit of a moment. Eventually, it will all sort itself out, I think. Looking at this at the moment, of course, we've got our first penalty, and that's a retiree from the session in Soing Chan Lim. That's going to be a yellow flag. The yellow flag up or rouge, and that could be a big accident. Expect to see potentially a safety car or something similar any moment. We've just got a yellow flag at the moment in Sector 1. It isn't seeming to impede anyone's races, so no sign of a safety car or a VSC at the moment. There is a chance that if you were to box early on these softs, you might be able to make the mediums last to the end. They are a bit of a myth on F1 2021. They seem to last forever. But let's not get it twisted. Just going back to your point about Jöran Dovzan. Currently, like you said, getting up on Istvan Pukki, and that might be indicative of the thing of often what I see a lot on this game is that a lot of people can be good on 1-lap pace, qualifying, and when they have that hot lap ERS mode. But when it comes to race pace, they can often struggle. Having that same consistency lap over lap and driving on the edge can cause you to make mistakes. And if you don't know how to dial back from being on the edge, you can find yourself in hot water. Anyway, into Lecombs. Daniko going defensive, forcing Istvan Pukki very close around the long way round, but holds the line as they exit on out. Still looking interested in a move down into the right-hander, the hairpin, taking it tight, and they're not done yet. This front 3 starting to make a bit of a breakaway from Harlan Marquis. They've already broken away from Rafa Martins, and now into Puon. It's going to be a question of how close can you stay. You want to try and lose as little time as possible in the dirty air, and unfortunately for Istvan Pukki, he's losing about 1.5 tenths as he goes through there about every lap at the moment. But now, as he'll come onto the back straight, as he goes through this little S section, he should have a little bit of a slipstream, but at the very least can look to use his ERS, which he's currently quite healthy on. About 80% currently, meanwhile only 68% for Daniko. Generally to be expected, though, when you're in DRS, you tend to accumulate that ERS back a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, that is something. Also, Daniel tried in P9 tried to make a beautiful double overtake work on the Alpine and Joshua Pinar in the Aston Martin down the turn 1, and just made it past the Alpine and almost past the other Aston Martin, but that was something I just saw, and then I was like, that was a very ballsy move to try and do, because how the turn has like this banking on it, which is very difficult to make work, especially for overtakes, in my opinion. I don't know about your experience with that one, but like I find that very difficult to just make something work there.
Yeah, it's difficult for sure, but at the moment, Reigns, we've got bigger fish to fry. I mean, there's all change at the front and all change in the pit lane as well. Will Gibson pitting onto the softs after just 6 laps on the mediums. And now you got drivers like Candy King and Tadej Kevin, who already have been struggling in the early portions of this race, now dropping themselves onto the medium tyres after just 6 laps. They're looking to try and get something going here. Meanwhile, at the front, it's been difficult for Danico as he got passed on the Kemmel straight by Istvan Pukki and then was immediately under the threat of Dovzan, who was giving him hard pressure into Lecombs. That, as a result, has now given Istvan Pukki a chance to try and break away from this DRS, and he desperately needs to, because he and Danico have both picked up 3-second penalties, which now, realistically speaking, leaves Jerne Dovzan in the driver's seat of this race, not just literally speaking, but also metaphorically speaking as well. He now has no penalties at the moment, leaves himself in P2 as he just sides past Danico in the bus stop chicane, but it's not gone according to plan. He spun out, Reigns, and he's going to have to pit right away. What was looking like such a promising possibility for Jerne Dovzan has gone spiraling and spinning down the drain, and as a result of that, and Harlem Marquise pitting also, Danico and Istvan Pukki have a big gap at the front of 5 seconds to the medium runner of Toby and the fellow Haas driver of Eduardo Reis behind. But that is a big lead for Istvan Pukki now. That incident, that altercation between the McLaren and the Mercedes at the bus stop chicane has gifted him a 3-second lead.
That was like it was also, to be honest, I don't want to like point fingers or anything, and that's not the point either, but that was a very clean attempt at an overtake. Like, I'm just gonna say that I would have gone for that myself. Now, I don't know if it was a good idea, but that was incredibly risky, and he had to take it. Dovzan had to take that risk of going on the outside, which sometimes can be very difficult to pull off, and as you can see, it did not work out. It really didn't.
No, did not work out at all. And it's just given, I think the motive behind it for Dovzan was he understands that Pukki's got the pace. I mean, he was clearly quite quick in qualifying, and he's now showing his mettle here in the race as well. So he needed to be in a position where he could ensure that he was going to be within a 3-second window of Pukki, or even in a position where he can take the place if he ends up getting a penalty himself. Now, for Pukki at lap 7, we're going to get towards the point here where we're going to see these soft runners, these remaining soft runners, which at this point really is just Danico and Pukki, to go into the pits to switch to the mediums. But
Danny is in.
All that much.
Danny has going in.
Well, at this point, right, he needs to do something different. He needs to put on a different set of tyres, try and get in over the pack, get some DRS, and get up close to Pukki, maybe hoping that when Pukki comes out...
And...
Oh, wait, no, it's going to be even worse than that, actually, for Danico. He had to change his front wing and has gone onto another set of softs. I think that was actually as a result of the accident that happened at the bus stop chicane. He lost so much time to the Ferrari up front and now back out on the softs with the safety car as well that's been called out as a result of Nathan Hartley's DNF. So that lead that Istvan Pukki had is about to evaporate, but he's going to get a free stop onto these mediums under these safety car conditions.
Yeah, this is playing right into Istvan Pukki's hands. Like, it's completely going his way. Qualifying, he barely made it work because Danico had a moment right at the final corner. And now the safety car and the tussle with Dovzan between Dovzan and Danny Ko is just helping Pookie increase his chances at just holding this and, for a matter of fact, probably winning this if this continues. Because that free pit stop is something that everyone wants to get without losing the lead. That's a dream for everyone.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think one thing that's also going to compound the problems for Danny Ko is that he's going to be coming out now, where he has done, as a result of changing his front wing, in a shed load of traffic.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of these medium runners are going to be particularly willing to change onto the softs just yet. We'll see if anybody is willing to take the gamble, as Pookie does come into the pit lane now. He'll be switching to those mediums shortly, and he'll be trying to make those last towards the end. Toby and the Haas, as a matter of fact, with Ayub Khan behind, is going to take this opportunity to pit onto the softs as well. We might see it, because by the time the safety car ends, we'll probably be on about lap 10 or 11, and you don't get a lot of tyre wear when you're under safety car conditions, because you're not exactly driving very hard. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you might be able to make these soft tyres last. Of course, the optimal window for it is about lap 13, lap 14 if you really want to push them the whole way. But with a couple of laps worth of tyre saving, you might not be in so bad of a position. Toby has come back out behind Dovzan, so that safety car at least saving the McLaren a little bit. Not all that much. This is going to bring drivers like Harlem Marquise back into contention. Wait, hold on a minute. Pookie's back out on the softs. He needs to use a different tyre compound before the end of the race. I was definitely expecting him to be out on the mediums.
I don't know what just happened. This is... I'm very... Wow, that is something you don't see very often. We literally made a joke about how soft medium was a strategy that was being suggested, and here we are a few minutes later, and two people have decided to actually go for it. I don't know what that says about us, but either
maybe we're just seeing the future. Have you got a crystal ball nearby? You got a magic lamp? You want to give it a rub?
I would like to say yes, but like it's you can't like. Is a soft medium that good that you, even under a safety car, you want to go for it? I mean,
well, I think for Pookie here, his win conditions are going to be reliant on a VSC or a safety car, because he needs to put those medium compound tires on at some point. Now, if I was going to go for a two-stop strategy, my plan here would have been to go for the soft, then the medium, then the soft, because then you have the faster tyres towards the end of the race, where I can try and make up as much ground as possible on that low fuel with those faster tyres. So I'm not really sure how this is going to be working out for him. The good news for him is he's got Carlos behind, who is on 8-lap-old mediums, soon to be 9-lap-old. And as a result of that, he might be able to hold up the field. Not intentionally, of course. DRS won't be enabled for a few laps, you've got to imagine. And those soft tyres of Pookie are going to be flying as long as he can get them in the window before the safety car comes in. Carlos though behind, medium tyres, 8 laps old, not really going to be the best position to try and give chase.
Yeah, but also, there was one person that was not actively part of the quali. That is SME Tana, who started in dead last because of not going out and not being able to set a time whatsoever. Who's also gone up to 13th and also has not done a stop yet, along with KKR the Borner. And here we see Istvan Pookie actually trying to get rid of some fuel, apparently.
I don't think that's a terrible thing to do. I mean, often Spa can be a bit of a fuel-greedy circuit, a bit like Paul Ricard in that respect. If you overfuel by 1 lap, you'll end up finding yourself losing about half of that tank towards the end. So often it can be nip and tuck with about how much you overfuel the car or whatnot. So safety car conditions, with it being such a long lap as well, give you a lot of time to accrue quite a lot of fuel. So burning it off, I don't really see as too big of a problem. He wants to keep that car as light as possible to make use of these soft tyres. I think that's going to be his primary objective.
I think I'm still thinking of this like like a My Team career or whatever, where you have to worry about your engine.
Yeah, your engine
wear.
modes, yeah.
I think I'm thinking too much in that sense, but no, I get what you mean. Getting rid of that fuel, that's a bit too much. You want to get rid of that fuel. It's not something you want to have too much of, because that is lap time, that is speed that you can use, and that is also, let's not forget, tire wear that you could save. The lighter the car, the less tire wear you get. So it is a very good idea to, if you have the chance, to just use up as much fuel as you can.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think Pookie knows that, and I think the reason he's having to burn all this fuel and keep the tyres in this window, because he realizes with that 3-second penalty, going onto the soft tyres might not have been the best choice with this safety car. I don't know whether it was a mistake or whether it was an active decision. Either which way, he has got a lot of work to do now as he sets the pace for the field. Safety car is in this lap, so expect drivers like Harlan Marquis to be in the prime position to try and take advantage of this, who pitted under the safety car to put those mediums on to now try and go to the end of the race. Carlos maybe not going to be in the best spot. His teammate, that is Pookie's teammate, Tadai Kevin, may also be well primed and prepped to take advantage of this. And now, under racing conditions, it looks like Pookie has decided to bolt early as he's gone and managed to gain himself a pretty decent advantage already, up to 1.92 seconds. Turns on the ERS, and he's already up to 3 seconds. That's the advantage of not waiting until the bus stop chicane to get your foot down. Harlan Marquis, though, has not wasted any time either. He's gone straight past Carlos and put himself up into P2, which is probably the best position for him currently, as he now leads the field on net gain, because, of course, Pookie needs to pit again.
Definitely. And also, Pookie also still has that penalty that Pookie has to deal with, because any race win would have to be with a considerable margin over the rest of the field, because otherwise it's not going to go well. He could drop 1, 2, maybe 3 spots if we see another safety car because of that penalty. Such is the nature of, at least at this level, I would say.
No, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, we're starting to see the deficits caused by having old tires on your car right now. Candy King has just dove up the inside of Carlos at Bruxelles and now leads the way to try and bridge that gap towards Harlan Marquis, who's on those much younger, much faster tyres. There's been a little bit of an accident towards the back of the field. That is Edu, who's now unfortunately spun off, but it hasn't caused him to end this race just yet.
Tadai Kevin gets another penalty.
Yeah, another one. That's going to be rough. That's 6 seconds for him now as well, I believe. And Esteban Pookie at the front is currently setting purple sectors reigned. He's really trying to push this one home. Of course, now that gap up to 3.3 seconds, he needs to make hay whilst the sun shines. It's a long pit stop here at Spa. So he needs to get up to, what, is it 25 plus seconds? I don't think that's really going to be reasonable. But a 1:44.9 as the fastest lap of the race from Pookie, leaving Marquis in his tow.
We're seeing a lot of penalties coming through right now. I think it's people are getting antsy. I think people are getting antsy for more overtakes, and they're just pushing it just that bit too much.
I think I also want to highlight one thing here, that testament to those degrading tyres. 11-lap-old mediums. He and Borna, that is Carlos and Borna, the two oldest tyres on the field. It's the two Alpha Tauris currently wheel banging, as Ayub Khan now takes over from his teammate into Lecombe. That's also Joshua Pinar in front of him as well now, and this is just bad for Carlos. He's falling backwards so quickly. The safety car restart was just a meager 2 laps ago, and since then he has dropped 7 positions to get back in towards P8, or 6 positions, sorry.
That is not something that you can walk away from and not be, for lack of a better word, tilted from. Like, you want those positions back, and you might just make split-second decisions, and he loses another position. He's about to lose another spot.
Oh, that's
right
tight. That is tight into Campus, but it looks as if the soft tyre of Daniel Kjærsen in the Red Bull has made it through. Now, as a result of this, Carlos has got to be considering what his options are. A pit maybe soon, but if he pits just look at where he's going to come out. He may even come out as far behind as Smetana, who's down in P18 on the hard tyres, having just made a pit stop of their own. The Borner as well is going to be in a very similar position, not helped by his penalties too. And I think this has got to be the time where you got to bite the bullet. Tadai Kevin goes all the way around him as well, down to P10 now. Meanwhile, keeping our eyes peeled towards the front, though, that gap is only expanding for Istvan Pukki.
Yeah, he's not stopping at all, setting fastest lap after fastest lap. Also, let's not forget Danny Coe, who had that tussle with Dovzan, coming worse off in P11, has to still fight back and is about to make haste with Carlos, one of our oldest tire runners right here. Also, let's not forget that Danny Coe, I think, also went on to the soft medium strategy.
Yes,
very early on.
Done.
So Danny Coe and Istvan Pukki both have to make a pit stop. This could end up being something that costs them both a victory of any sort, because as fast as Istvan Pukki and Danny Coe were in qualifying, they need to be much faster to stay out of the reach of Harlem and Toby.
I think I might have figured out the reason why Istvan Pukki has gone on to those soft tyres. Now, Will Gibson, I'm not sure whether he's just trolling out of his mind or whether there is rainfall starting to happen as he is on the intermediate tyres.
Oh.
Now, are we expecting rain here? Conditions are certainly getting a little bit harder on terms of visibility, but how hard is the rain?
Now that you say it, I just thought I saw a pixel of raindrop.
Yeah,
maybe it's because you said that? I saw that, or it is actually happening. No, I'm seeing this correctly. There is light drizzle has started. That puts a lot of perspective into this entire race. Why the two soft tires? Because they have to go into the mediums, into the intermediates, either way. Wow, that puts a lot of perspective. If you had not noticed that, I don't think I would have noticed the rain until it started pouring and there was just puddles forming.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Definitely seeing a few spots of rain here, but I still think it's probably a little too early for Will Gibson to be onto these intermediate tyres. I suppose he's thinking that with the race in its current position for him, he's just got to try and take a gamble and hope it works out for him. But now I'm starting to see the logic behind these two pitting onto soft tyres. That's both Danny Coe and Istvan Pukki.
And it also makes complete sense, because Istvan Pukki was the one doing all the over-revving to get rid of fuel, because he knows that once he's on the intermediates, there is no way of getting a fastest lap. The chances of getting a fastest lap is not going to be there, so that one extra point can be worth a championship, as we know from real life, where Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton were just no point difference between them in the last race.
Absolutely, and I think that possibly explains why we're seeing Carlos and the Borner also staying out on these medium tyres for as long as they have done. They're waiting patiently for this changeover point. The problem is that this changeover point is not really coming soon enough for them at the moment. They're still dropping back places. Carlos now down to P11. Of course, the race leader still yet to decide whether it's time to pit or not, and you imagine that once he does, everybody else is going to follow suit. I note with interest also that Toby has got himself into a good position in the Haas now, up to P2 and starting to break away from Harlem Marquise in third place on those soft tyres of his own. So he's trying to make chase towards Istvan Pukki, but we're seeing Danny Coe coming into the pits now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Danny Coe is in the pits. Onto the intermediates too.
Front wing change though as well. That might have motivated the decision a little bit sooner than he'd have liked.
Also, we now have almost all except for the wet tires on the grid right now. We have the softs, we have the mediums, we have the hards, and we have the intermediates. I have no clue why Smetana has decided to go on to the hards. I think your guess would be as good as mine, but it makes no sense why the hard tire was used there. Maybe there's just no more tires left, but like...
I don't know, he didn't even compete in qualifying, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. And those hard tires are just going to be losing grip hand over fist with the rain coming down as well. It's not like with the soft tires where you do get that little bit of extra grip from them even in these cooling conditions. The hard tires must feel like ice skates right now.
even Will get. I think this is like that time period where the softs are not ideal, but the intermediates are not ideal either. Because I just saw Will Gibson having a massive slide out of the bus stop chicane, just almost sideways kind of slide.
Yeah, I think the problem for Will Gibson might be that he's overheated those tyres by going just a little bit too early, so they might be shot. And of course, there's still, 7 laps of this Grand Prix still to finish. Now, Istvan Pukki comes round the bus stop chicane, still deciding it's not wet enough yet for him to pit onto the intermediates. Is the rain going to get heavy enough that we're going to see people dropping onto these green banded tyres? At the moment, it seems not. It seems just people who've kind of had their hand forced by either bad results or wing damage. That's both Danny Coe and Will Gibson. Both of those not really making up any time either to the drivers in front of them. In fact, they're actively losing it. But I think there's been a little bit of a problem for the Borna on those 14-lap old mediums. He's struggling with grip as he spins on the exit of the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, this is becoming really... All these split strategies are just making my head hurt. Carlos and the Borna are really pushing these tires to their limits in the kind of weather that it's going on right now. And I said before we started that I would love to see the holy grail of races where we went from a dry to wet race. I did not actually... Like, I'm starting to think like I have some prediction ideas. Like, I can predict the future because, like... Where is this coming from? Like, the chances of wet races going into dries now seems like a normal idea. That this is gonna ease up and it's gonna go into dries. I'm rambling too much. Never mind.
I'm not sure quite how this one's going to pan out. Whether the rain is yet heavy enough for the softs or even for the slick tyres to not yet be viable. Or what? It's still flat round Blanchimont for Istvan Pukki, so I don't think he's in a position yet where he's considering boxing for the intermediates. He is showing sign. Oh no, he is. In fact, he's boxing now. It must be wet enough out there for him to consider boxing. We'll see whether Toby decides to do the same. He follows suit. Harlan Marquise and Jerne Dovson are both staying out on the medium
I think
tires.
we're going to see a whole range of pit stops happening right now.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yes, the intermediates are going on. And...
Oh, he's been held in the pit lane, I think. Oh, no, never mind. It was just a visual
No.
look. Never mind. It's just one of those things. Thank you, F1 2021. Despite that, it is Eduardo Reis who also might be in a position to capitalise. If they are yet to quite get these intermediates fired up and the softs are still within the window, then players who we might have thought were originally out of the game might be in with a shout of this. Like, look at Daniel Kjeldsen, for example. He's up into P3. Tadej Kevin, who had a woeful start of things, up into P4. Of course, yet to still make their pit stops, though, to these intermediates.
Yeah. So, Carlos, if we think about this clearly, Carlos did gain a lot from going super long on those mediums. Because, as you can see, P6.
Yeah, realistically speaking, yeah, you're right.
Realistically, it's just P6. And that's... And if you throw a safety car into that, that might cause some problems, but... I think this is the strategy to go extra long on the mediums is somehow paying off. Now, I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not going to say any more, but yeah.
Okay, so looking at this with the current lay of the land, an interesting point of note is that Toby, the second place runner on the intermediates currently, has just picked himself up a 3-second time penalty, which really was the only thing keeping him from winning this race. If you could get in touch with Istvan Pukki, now requires him to bridge an even larger gap to get up to the Hungarian. As that now leaves the gap between Toby and Edu coming down a little bit now, I'm noticing. So this could be the point. This must be the changeover window now. These slick tyres do not have the grip anymore to contend with the intermediates. Edu surely having to drop into the pits now as the rest of the front runners do. In fact, Jerne Dovson is still staying out on these medium tyres. He's going to be losing a shed load of time, surely. It's going to be interesting to keep an eye on the interval data between he and Istvan Pukki, as it's already now down to 10 seconds. It's coming down by the 10th every single time. In fact, it's just he and Smetana who are the only players out on these slick tyres at present. I don't know whether Smetana's hoping for a miracle or whether both of these drivers are hoping it's going to dry up. But at the moment, there is still rain falling from the sky, and that is not likely.
No, Smetana has said to go into the pits.
Smetana Dobson now the only player on the medium tyres, on the slick tyres. DRS has been disabled as well. That's got to be the indication that it's time to come in.
Yeah. Do you think that Dobson was waiting for the DRS to turn off before going into the pits? Because if so, that's very late. Because the gap that used to be almost 11 seconds is already down to 9.5, and is dropping fast.
Oh, look at the spray in that area of the track. There is a lot of water starting to be kicked up now. The track is getting considerably wetter. And Jenné Dovson's gap is starting to get considerably smaller. He's lost 1.5 seconds in the second sector alone. And now in the third sector, whilst it is mostly straight, he's going to lose a load of time around Blanchimont because, simply speaking, he does not have the grip to contend with this corner at high speed. Little bit of a lift, rear stepping out all over the place as he's now going to have to surely come into the pits. There's no way he can tough this one out. It's just not feasible. He's going to carry on. He's going to carry on. I think he's going to try and see what results he can get on slick tyres in the wet. This happened in the MotoGP with Brad Binder at Austria, where on the last 5 laps, it went wet. It went very, very wet very quickly, and he won the race by staying out on the slicks for as long as he could. It was a
Are we going to see a repeat?
It was
I
a
mean,
race of fine margins.
there are only 3 laps left to go. So, this could be one of those wins where you just don't expect it, and then it all has to do with Dobson's ability to defend against the faster intermediate tire.
I don't think there's going to be much ability in question there. The intermediates just have more grip at the moment. Admittedly, though, that interval gap at the top is deceiving. You've got to add an extra 3 seconds on for Istvan Bukki. Oh, Dobson making it look like he's driving a drift car.
I mean, that front right tire must be crying. I just saw that tire completely stand still. Just stop moving. That lockup must have been extremely deadly. And that cost... Istvan Bukki is there. 1 second.
I don't see how Dobson can keep this McLaren on the track currently. It is far too wet for these medium tyres.
And that was not even a contention. That was not even a battle.
Drives around him like he's not even there. He's barely in this race, really. And the gap surely to Toby is going to just diminish rapidly as well. Whilst he might be able to stay up. Oh, Jesus Christ! He nearly loses the car, has to correct, come completely off the throttle.
I think we're seeing Formula Drift happen right here. I mean...
Big time.
I mean, the ability to hold that in these conditions, on slick tires, on especially also 11 lap old, and he still keeps going!
Out. What is going on?
What are we witnessing right now?
Zero grip. He can't get the tyres fired up out the corner. They must be ice blocks right now. He must have absolutely no temperature in these tyres. Let's look at the traction he gets out of the source. How much wheel spin is there going to be? Oh, it's done. He's off the track. It's got to be over for him. He's massively miscalculated this rain. He cannot keep the car in a straight line. He's aquaplaning all over the shop. He just can't even stay straight on the track. Up through Radion, he's lost the car already. Manages to keep it in there somehow, and now I don't even know what can be said about this. It's a hero's performance, but I'm afraid it's all completely in vain. He's just going to lose time, positions, and points hand over fist. It's not long until he's going to be out of the points either. Just having to keep the car on the track is going to be such a problem.
In the meantime...
Oh no, he's lost it. It's gone.
Oof. And that is a race that is over, probably. Because a pit stop happening, and we're going to see him drop possibly down to 18th. I mean, would not surprise me, but that is a heartbreak. A crucial misjudgment is not something you want to see. We only have 2 laps left to go. Well, 3 technically, but it seems that there is not much change happening here other than Dobson losing positions.
Yeah, and he's losing a lot of them. Let's not get it twisted. I think that might be him also spinning out again there. But well, enough about the medium runner. His race is done. Danny Coe is the next man for the job on here. But at the moment, Istvan Pukki currently controlling the race with a 7.3 second lead. Harlan Marquis, as you'll notice, has taken control of second place away from Toby, struggling with traction on the exit of the bus stop chicane, but that's not going to deter him from breaking away from Toby in the Haas. Candy King also within that 3-second window that he needs to be inside for Toby to lose that podium position. So if I'm the Haas driver right now, I'm thinking of really putting in a shift. I'm wondering how much ERS I've got to spend. I've got about 60% of my battery remaining. I've got to try and keep on touch with Harlan Marquis and hope he can drag me away from the pack behind.
Yeah, and Harlan Marquis, on the other hand, needs to make up 4 seconds. Let's not say that one spin, like that's not, I don't want to wish ill fate on anyone, but that's the only way that Harlan Marquis is going to make it if Istvan Pukki somehow messes up a corner or whatnot, because 4 seconds need to be made up. And at the pace that we are seeing Istvan Pukki pull off here, I don't think that's happening. Even with the 3-second time penalty that Istvan Pukki has.
No, neither do I, sadly. And I think the reason for that, one of the big motivating factors for this gap still not coming down, is the fact that Harlan Marquis hasn't really got a lot of ERS still available to him. 25% currently compared to the 55% of Istvan Pukki. He hasn't really had to push this ERS button all that much to keep himself in the lead. Whereas to try and hunt on down, Harlan Marquis will have to. And it just goes from bad to worse for Jerne Dovson, as he picks up another 3-second time penalty, still out on those medium tyres, trying to make it work.
I think he's just decided that he wants to finish the race on this tyre.
Yeah. I mean,
he wants to
cool
die by
thing
the
to
cross.
say you've done. Yeah, he's made his bed, now he's got to sleep in it, I think is the expression.
Yeah.
So unfortunately for him, his race is over, but Toby still really not able to get away from Candy King and Daniel Kjeldsen behind him, who are both looking to try and usurp his podium position. Daniel currently still sitting in P5 behind Candy King. Neither of these drivers yet to pick up a penalty, and he's within a 1-second gap as well. So potentially there's a chance for his last lap lunge to be made in order to try and get this podium position. That's really the only thing up for grabs here now. The first two places are all but decided, but P3 looks to be where the real battle is taking place.
Yeah, Candy King and Daniel Kjeldsen are the ones to view right here, as they're about to battle for third place. Toby is there, but the time penalty is costing him a lot. Daniel Kjeldsen is just outside the 3-second time window, so Daniel Kjeldsen needs to make this overtake work without spending too much time fighting here, before Toby just takes off and increases that gap to over 3 seconds.
At the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to happen all that likely, because the ERS differential between the two is in Candy King's favour, and we're getting towards that speed portion of the track now. Just Campus left to go, really, before any real corners are made up. Last opportunity to overtake after this moment in time will be the bus stop chicane, and from 8/10 back, I'm not really feeling like Daniel Kjeldsen has all that much of a horse in this race. P3, it looks like the Alfa Romeo driver of Candy King is going to be taking this one home, but let's not call all these eggs before they've hatched. Still could be a final twist in this cruel fate that is called a motor race. As it does looking increasingly likely, though, as Istvan Pukki rounds the final corner, that he will be taking P1 honours from pole, leads the whole race to finish P1 as well. A small bit of contention in the middle from Danny Coe, but that threat went away very, very quickly. Harlan Marquis comes home to a comfortable P2, and Candy King snatches away P3 from Toby. Daniel Kjeldsen comes home in P4 for Toby to take P5. I have Khan P6, and then this is where things are going to get sorted out in the back order of things. P7, P8, P9, and P10 are all basically going to be decided by penalties, as Tax is going to DNF over the finish line, but technically still finishes, so it's not a total piece of carnage, as there's cars flying all over the place on that home straight. So it is going to be Ayub Khan P6, Tax P7, Eduardo Reis in P8, Joshua Pina in P9, and final points honours being taken home by the McLaren of Edu.
McLaren not having a great day today. Davsan struggling with the strategy, and Edu was nowhere to be seen almost the entire race.
Yeah, I think he had a bit of an issue where he ended up spinning at one point and it didn't really go quite according to plan for him. But having said that, the final runners will now be finishing the race as well. Jere Dobson still really struggling on these medium
Edu
tyres.
got a 20-second time penalty.
Oh, good lord, how did that happen?
I have no clue. I'm actually...
Okay then. So, all things being said and done, it's actually a good day at the office for Ferrari. They take the first points and the last points available, as Tadej Kevin, who qualified P3.
I was also about to say that almost every team has been represented in the top 10, but then Edu dropped out of the top 10.
Oh.
So that was unfortunate. But yeah.
It is indeed unfortunate. But either way, that was a good little race. The rain coming towards the end as well certainly made things interesting when it came to the strategy calls. And you have to say that Pookie called it perfectly. Managed to get not only the fastest lap of the race, but also P1 from every lap, really. From the beginning to the end, the Hungarian has made it work. So congratulations to him. Also congratulations to Harlan Marquis for pulling off a very comfortable P2. And Candy King for managing to scratch through into P3 whilst usurping Toby as a result of that 3-second time penalty.
Also,
but it has to be said, dominant performance from the Ferrari driver.
Yeah, also, Carlos was, I'm pretty sure, the only one to do a one-stop other than... Oh, no.
The Borner, maybe? The Borner, potentially?
Yeah, the Borner and...
Obviously, Dobson, yes.
Yeah, but Dobson had his own set of problems to deal with in this scenario. But that was, to be honest, I think that's the biggest turnaround I have seen. It's going from P1 and leading by a considerable margin to not being there at all.
I think it's just a testament, really, more than anything, to what happens when you get your strategy call a little bit wrong. One thing that is often difficult to predict in racing is the weather. Yeah. Famously difficult to predict and often causes a number of different problems. And today, it was unfortunate that it was McLaren who suffered the consequences of that. But again, it's got to be said, huge round of applause to Pookie for managing to pull that one off today with a 2-stop onto the soft tyres and really stretching after that safety car, recognizing that those behind him might not have looked at the weather properly. I think that's going to be a lesson to the rest of the grid for next time out.
Yeah. Also, it would be nice to know what the weather predictions were, because realizing halfway why someone was deciding to go softs after a pit stop for the second time does cause some questions and scratching heads.
Absolutely. It definitely does. It's one of those things that confusion is just a strange beast, really. But yeah, that's one thing that's lacking from the spectator menu in F1 2021 is knowing what the weather's going to do. So it doesn't really give us all the information. Meanwhile, when you're there in real life, you can just look at the sky and you say, "Oh, it's a bit grey up there, isn't it? It might be due some rain soon."
Yeah, that is something that is very difficult to predict, especially when it's all online and you can't actually see the weather forecast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the results, incredible. That race was basically a masterclass by Pookie.
It was indeed.
Essentially.
Controlled it, I think would be the way that I'd describe it. Truly controlled it. When the conditions started to change as well, he pitted at the right time. I suppose let other people kind of do a test run for him. Had like players like Will Gibson and even, of course, Danny, who managed to go on to those intermediates a little bit too early and told him it wasn't quite time to go. I think he judged it to perfection. I think you're right. It was a masterclass, probably the best way of describing it.
Yeah, I mean, also, I just checked the chat, and apparently there was someone telling us about that there is rain supposed to come in 15 minutes. So if either one of us had decided to check the chat for once,
that's the number one thing you don't do. When you're commentating, you don't check the chat. It's usually a bit of a stream of toxicity or something, so I tend not to look. I tend not to take notice.
I like to look, but like for some reason I just completely forgot about it. I was enjoying the racing that I was seeing, which says something about the racing today. It says a lot more about the racing than it does about the broadcast itself, to be honest.
Yeah,
Because
was indeed a nice one though. I thought it was good. I enjoyed the view. I enjoyed commentating with you as well. It's great fun.
Thank you,
And hopefully same again next week. Yeah.
yeah, I'm hoping that I can be here next week as well. Although I don't know about my schedules. Because
Awesome.
my schedule changes all the time, and that is not great. As much as I would like to have that fixed for every week.
No, well, no problems either which way. It's been a pleasure to broadcast it, and I think we're at a point now where we can wrap things up, aren't we? So,
yes.
take it away for closing remarks, my guy.
So, the winner, Pookie, showing us exactly how it's supposed to be done, how the entire race should be commanded to from start to finish. Qualifying went his way, and that's about it. I mean, what more can you say about the race today? It was some great racing, some downfalls, some misjudgments, but I mean, you kind of expect that when you are starting out in this league. And I can't wait to see what kind of race we're going to have next week at Imola, round 2, which, to be honest, Imola is my favorite track. So it's one of my favorite tracks. Maybe not the favorite, but it is one of those classics. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen and how these guys are going to perform. If Danico is going to bring it back from, to be honest, it was a horrendous race for him. It did not go well.
No, I think that was 2 front wings for him in that race and a bit of a dire pit stop strategy.
Yeah.
So even still, I suppose Imola, like you say, next week should be an interesting state of affairs. We'll keep you posted. Of course, stay tuned to all the WOR social media links. I think they're in the description below. And you can keep all that checked out. As for us, I think that's going to do it. Thank you all very much for watching. It's been a pleasure to bring you the race. And we'll see you same time next week for Imola.
Goodbye.